Nigeria confronted with challenges such as rising inflation, food inflation, and economic hardship. These, which I have mentioned, have culminated in previous warning strikes from the Nigerian Labour Congress, the NLC. As we speak, the strike, which was in motion, has actually been suspended. On Viewpoint today, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue, I've got Pelumi on the show to shed more light on the happenings on the protest. You're welcome to the show, Pelumi.
I'm glad to be here again.
Yeah. Now, it's been this case of a seasonal episode concerning the demands of the NLC from the federal government. Of course, it's been a seasonal affair in different administrations now. I want to believe that as the show progresses, you'll be able to shed more light on the show.
I can't wait.
I'm Odeawa AI, and the show is Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. You will do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Veegil Media, and follow us across various social media platforms. Join us in the next phase of the show. You're welcome back to the show. Now, Pelumi, it's this seasonal episode like I began by saying at inception. Now, these are demands from the government. Why is it that the government is so plausible to give, so quick to give these plausible policies to the people probably during their campaigns? And when they get into office, it becomes difficult, probably in the first 100 days, to live up to those plausible manifestos they've actually given to the electorate. And then the NLC on its own part comes on board and begins to make demands on behalf of the people.
Well, I think that sometimes when you are outside of the system, you tend to imagine that the problems are not many, and you think that they can be solved just by a click. The idea is, if you remember when you had a president giving his manifesto, he said a lot of things as to how it sounded very positive. You would imagine that he had everything within his reach to be able to fix the issues. But it looks like what is on ground is different from what they expect, what they hoped to see. I heard Senator Akpabio speaking one time and said that what they met on ground was they met a mess on ground. But you people told us at the beginning that when you get there, you're going to fix things. And in my consideration of what's happening today, if a worker is employed in a particular company, usually they give the person 6-month probationary period to say, you come on board. If you don't do well, we're going to send you out. But it's not the case here, because we've spent over 5 months now, and it feels as though something is still missing there. So that's my take on what's happening at the moment.
Okay, so can we have that video pull up, so at least we can have some observations as to actually what actually happened or took place? So evidently, as we can see now, Pelumi, we could observe now from this motion picture now, starting from Akwa Ibom State. Now we have the Imo State NLC chapter now. It's ongoing. We could see that people are en masse coming outside for the protest, which was as at yesterday. Now, these are a series of episodes from Akwa Ibom State. Now we're on Imo State. I want to believe that subsequently, the next scene should switch over to another state chapter. Now, with all these videos which we've seen, which emanated from the protest yesterday, the meeting actually, which was between the Labour Congress and the federal government, actually ended in a stalemate. Could it be that on the part of the federal government that this act of a pace of indifference and negligence?
Well, in my research as to what their demands were, usually the idea of protest is you come out to say you are not happy about something. And then every time you go into the negotiation room to negotiate during protest, to say, okay, we're about to go on this journey, these are our demands. And when they listed their demands, first of their demand is to say that the government should empower the system enough to be able to ensure that compressed natural gas vehicles are used. Because from research, it saves you 40%. If you compare that to a few vehicles, it saves you 40%. And so a way to reduce the cost of governance, a way to make certain cost-effective moves, is to ensure that the system has enough compressed natural gas vehicles around. Number two, their second demand was to ensure that cashless policy is being implemented, where cashless transfer actually is being made. Because in a season like this, the other time I was discussing about the idea of incentive and palliative. And when people are under pressure, there are many ways to go about it. And sending money to people is palliative in a way. And in a time where things are tense like this, it's something that is wise for the government to implement. And then their third demand, actually, which they've been on for a while, is the increment in the minimum wage. Imagine that, and before I used to say that if you can't have a meal of $1 per day, you are poor. But at the moment, even less than that, a dollar now exchanges for about 1,800. And so you imagine that some people can't even eat. And so these people are bringing this thing on board. But it looks like the federal government felt it was a move made on the ground of their initial request for increment in minimum wage. But this is a different thing entirely. People are hungry. The cost of things have risen, and we can't put that aside. So I guess their demands were not met to the amount to which they wanted it to be, and then they had to go on with the protest anyway.
So it therefore means that, from your own view, in your own opinion, therefore means that the move was right, even when the FG, the federal government, had actually told them to back down from the protest.
Well, now, see, throughout history, protest has always been the way for people to express themselves. In fact, like I said earlier, there is no protest without a reason. And when a team comes together to inform the government that they are protesting on this particular day, what the government should do, because what protest does, it reveals injustice, it demands accountability, it inspires people to believe in the future. Even the current president, when President Jonathan was there, in 2011, 2012, fuel subsidy, he was out there. Even the ex-president was out there to speak, and nothing happened. So going out to speak for the people, and I think I was sharing with you yesterday that people love to express their anger. And that is to say, if you see a particular type is angry, for instance, why somebody from a rich family, he can break the TV, but if you try that in some families, you'll be dealt with for a long time. So the idea is a way for people to express themselves is protest. And it was a bright move to make. At this time, it was the right way to make. But I guess this must have also put the federal government on its toes, because I saw that in my research, I saw that you had some security agencies man the areas. I saw that police were even giving people snacks, egg roll, fish roll, to keep protesting because they wanted to be peaceful. Yeah. Now
security agencies have now started catering for the lives which is actually constitutionally defined to protect. It has never happened in the history of Nigeria.
At all.
Where you want to organize a protest here in Nigeria, historically speaking, people are battered. But now they were practically doing the needful by safeguarding their interests and also even taking care of their bellies, which have been hungry or empty since this administration commenced. Now, will we begin to differentiate or place side by side a revolution and a protest?
Well, so there is the right to protest. And it's the right of every citizen to say, I don't want this. But when it is peaceful, the role of the government, when the Labour Congress decides to protest, is to ensure that the protest is peaceful. When security agencies begin to beat people when they protest, it's against people's rights. You are violating their right to protest. But it's different from revolutionary moves. But we're saying that we don't want this. You have called us into a room. We realize that what you have here, just like somebody going for a job interview, they have a list of what they want, and then they say, okay, this one. They say, okay, we want you to come on board, but this is the offer. They say, okay, you're going to be at work from Monday to Sunday, 9 to 9. I can't do 9 to 9. I can do Monday to Sunday, 8 to 4. Say no, and we go and you leave. So they got into the room, placed their demand before the government, also with the Union Congress like that. They placed their demand before on the table. The federal government could not assure them that their demand, all of what they've listed would be met, and then they had to make the move. So the fact that you can see, and that's what happens when you have somebody who has always been in the forefront of activism become the president, because he has been able to, he can feel the infirmity of the people, he can feel the pain, and so he knows that when people protest peacefully, it yields more result than when you beat them. Because the idea of any insurgency, no insurgency ends with violence. No insurgency ends by just guns and cutlasses. Every insurgency ends with people, their orientation changing. So if you want to tell the people to be cool and calm, you don't beat them. If you beat them, it will increase resolve. They will do it because people want to die. Actually, people want to die for their sins.
Okay, now you made mention of something actually concerning the agreements. Now, early this morning, reports making the round states that the FG has actually met by 90% of these agreements. But historically speaking, now not only on the NLC. The NLC is only a body which actually accommodates other unions. We have the Nubife, which supports the interest of lower banking staff. We have ASBIFE, which supports the senior banking staff. We have Pengasin, we have Nupeng. All unions are all encompassing under one body, which is the NLC. Now, the question I want to ask is, the government has always, now this report now is according to Minister of Labour, Nkiruka Onyejocha. Okay. Now, the point now is, over time in various administrations, the government has always promised to live up to agreements, but somewhere along the line, for instance, now 90%, they don't even get up to 90%. Probably maybe on the shaky side, they get to 60% or maybe 75%. And it kind of dwindles. And why? Because there are lapses even in the 60 or 75%. Will this administration actually live up to that 90% agreement that is actually stated?
Well, what I've seen the government do so far so good is quite commendable. I would speak about the Lagos State governor, for instance, and recently he made an announcement of about 10 moves that the state is making to ensure that people don't feel the hot lot. And then one of the moves is to empower Mama Put. I call it the Lagos State Mama Put strategy, where Mama Put are identified and then they are empowered with resources to feed at least 1,500 persons each day for 60 days. And then after that's like 2 months. After that, the process will be assessed, evaluated, and then what the next move will be made known. Also, he has also slashed down the transport fare for BRT buses by 25%. Now, those are moves that can inspire the people. And listen, if that, I can almost bet with you, sometimes you have to look at precedents. If these moves were not made before this call for protest, because protest doesn't happen tomorrow, it happens over. People study things and observe. So the Labour Congress must have studied the way the country is going before voicing out. It's just like you testing somebody's limits. You move the person's seat a bit, the person doesn't say anything. You move it a bit, the person, you then get to the point where you move the person's seat far away and the person then reacts.
And you push the person to the wall.
To the wall. So the idea is, because of the improvement that has been made, it's okay, listen, we want to do this. And I think there's something there that we have not been told, and I will tell you what it is. This is it. I believe that the call for protest would have been called off the day they had a meeting with the federal government. I believe so. I believe that this was already the pipeline already. I believe so. I believe that the Labour Congress, which is right, just had to organize this one-day protest so that the people can voice out their ought. And you wouldn't imagine how many persons I felt justified, like my voice has been heard. I went out to protest, and that's, people want to express themselves. So it was the right move to make. Anyway, in my mind, what I think is that move to cancel the protest must have been made in that room, saying, see, we're going, because everything looks scripted. When did the police people get the snacks? Did they order from? So it looked like everything was in the pipeline already. By 11 a.m., we'll take the snacks there and then give them water, ensure it is peaceful. And that they did. So I think it's a good move, and I believe, so sometimes you just want to say, but I believe that the federal government of Nigeria at the moment is making the needed move that should have been made before now, and it was based on what they had done that the Labour Congress must have said, okay, I think these people they cater for us, but you know that they've also given the federal government ultimatum to say March, particularly in March, if we don't see results, we're going to come out again to protest.
Okay, now coming to the fact of coming out again to protest, there have been rumors making the rounds that probably the NLC is being used as a tool to get at the government, considering the demands which they make, which is a 35,000 naira minimum wage, and also the rising cost of standard of living, and also food also on the other hand. Now, my question now is, personally speaking, there have been other insecurities which have actually affected this food issue or rising inflation. Now, rising inflation won't take place if we don't have expatriates coming in to invest. Why? Because our own made or homemade products are not being patronized. Number two, secondly, when it comes to scarcity of food or cost of food, price will drastically increase. Probably why? Because the mode of transportation has been altered. Why? Because of banditry. Now, what has the NLC done, protested about concerning these insecurities? Why is it that it's only particularly when it comes to, for instance, the removal of fuel subsidy? Nigeria has a history of going on nationwide strike whenever anything relates to fuel. Why is it that it's only that sector that hits the most when it comes to strike, and then the issue of food also? Is it that the NLC on their own part? Because the way I'm seeing it, both parties have themselves to blame, whether it's the federal government or the NLC. Because we look at it, the NLC needs to also embark on strikes, not just attacking the government over its luxurious lifestyle alone. Also make demands. As we speak now, Leah, out of the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag saga, is still absent as we speak. What has the NLC done concerning that? That is someone's child. So the NLC doesn't have to come outside to support the interest of theirs alone. Because the way I'm saying it, doesn't end with food also. When it comes to food also, there's a process, there's a food chain. It starts with planting from the farmers. How have the farmers been secured? When I mean secured, not safety now. I'm talking about their crops also, their livestock also. Has the NLC actually addressed these issues from the nitty-gritty, right from the foundation, concerning their protests?
Well, when it has to do with the cost of things in Nigeria, we have to understand that the demand for compressed natural gas vehicles, that's why I support that call. Because look at it. Petrol, whoever controls the price of petrol controls the economy of Nigeria. Why? Yeah. Because we depend on that. That's the way we transport ourselves. Because to take the good from the farm to the firms, you need to transport yourself down there. And so whatever happens to petrol affects everything. And that's why I guess every time the subsidy on petrol is being removed, they come out to say we don't want this. Because we know at the moment we depend, our economy majorly depends on petrol. Again, even beyond that, that's how we fuel our generators, because we don't really have power at the moment. So if the only reason that NLC will stop coming out to say every time fuel subsidy is being removed, the only reason they will stop coming out is when we have alternatives. And that's why they are suggesting alternatives. And to speak on the issue of importing things, we don't really patronize what we have within our geographical location here. Whatever is produced or made here, we don't really buy that. And there's been a lot of persons coming out to say, the vehicles that our senators are using, why not get it from within? Go to Innocent, get vehicles from him. Keep the money within the system. Also, the other part is the fact that we import more than we export. And it's a challenge that has been on ground for a long time. So when I see the NLC come out every time, I think they come out when they feel choked, when it looks like this is going to choke us. Everything is tensed. And the government knows that protest is a way of citizens' participation. And so when the citizens don't protest, even the government will be afraid. And so it's a way to know what people actually want. If somebody is frowning around, imagine somebody, you have a friend who is frowning around, he's just frowning in his face. And he doesn't say this is frowning. You want to know why he's frowning. You want to know why he's not responding to you like he responded to you yesterday. And so the protest is a way for the government to even know what the people want at the time. And it's I would say it's a power play. It's a system that ensures that people have their voices heard. But there are other issues. For instance, you have, and I think the jurisdiction of the labor force is whatever affects labor. And that's the human entity involved in the production of goods and services. That's where labor comes in. They only speak up when what's happening affects the people. For instance, they will not come out to speak up. They will come out to speak up when the staff of a particular company, a particular government agency are being kidnapped. They can come out because it's under their jurisdiction. But when it happens that, for instance, for Leah's case, you had teams who came out to say, I think, bring back our girls. There was a Bring Back Our Girls campaign. A few other people stood up to say, see, we want this to happen. Those movements can make that happen. But when it has to do with the labor force, has to do with the life of the people working, and that connects to minimum wage, it's their responsibility. It's not, it mustn't be politically instigated. It's their responsibility to speak up for the increment of the wage of the people because it's under labor. Then talking about the cost of things, once people begin to feel pain, it affects the way they work, and it affects the system as well. So they are coming out based on an informed ground. And I think nobody should say, I read in the news as well, some person said it was politically instigated. Please, whether or not things are hard, can you fix things first before just telling us it's politically instigated or not? Yeah.
Okay, on that note, just to conclusively wrap up now, this case of the protest, I'm not trying to relate it to the NSAS protest.
Okay.
But whenever a protest comes up like this, it's always to either attack the government. Oftentimes, just as you said, a policy, or let me take a cue from what you said, a policy is thrown out by the government, oftentimes to test run, just like the DJs and the MCs do mic check, testing. So now this policy is what the government will actually throw out there to test the populace or the citizenry, to actually know whether it's compliant with the existence of the citizenry. Peradventure is not compliant. That is when the protests begin to happen. Now, with the security apparatus in place, I'm talking about the police, the NSCDC, just to mention a few in place, could it be that it's a case of hope it's not going to be a suspicious move to undermine the protest? Because oftentimes it has happened. To undermine the protest, instead of being peaceful, it turns into something else.
Well, the government has to understand that every time you try to fight a protest using the police, using the force, it only empowers resolve. People become bitter, and then you would find criminal activities everywhere. It's all over history. That's how it happens. People want to die for what it is they believe. The only way they can keep cool is when they believe that their voices have been heard. And the presence, like I said, the role of the government during protest is to provide security. They must have been informed. So no protest just happens, so yeah, we no go agree. No. They must have been informed before time. It has to go through due process. We are protesting on this day. And then your job is to provide security to ensure that nothing happens to us. And so, but we've seen over time that the federal government at some point have undermined the system, the protest, and all of that. But I think we're getting to a point where things are beginning to change. And the government is seeming to have a different orientation as to the fact that every time you fight ideology, you empower resolve. You have to call people to the table and negotiate. I can tell you for free that even yesterday, calls were made to the Labour Congress chairman from the government to most likely negotiate to say, see, call this enough. Okay, we're going to just call it off. Give us till this time. And that's why you have deadlines. You have deadlines to say, well, give us from this time to this time. And then if we don't do this. So it's not like everything will be fine till then. It's that they have listed 1, 2, 3. We are going to meet this between this time and if we don't meet this between this time and this time, that's negotiation. Call up the strike again. So I think the government is beginning to understand that the people need their voices heard, and for us to have seen the police here egg go and fish pie, this country will be better.
Oh, that's nice, Pelumi, for giving extensive explanation now on the NLC protest concerning its demands from also the part of the federal government, what it needs to do to address the bugging bites in the nation amid the increasing hardship, rising inflation, and high cost of living. The NLC and the human rights group, which staged a protest across Nigeria against the government's indifference, or what I call it, negligence to the plight of Nigerians, Now, it's our hope that with the suspension of the strike, the federal government will live up to the 90% agreement which it has reached. I'm Odiawa AI, with me. The show has been Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. You will do well to subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us across various social media platforms. Thanks for watching.